It is time for my first big makeover project on a property that wasn't mine. The pathways were very, very dangerous, and that was one of my biggest missions on this project. I had three main goals during this project. Number one, to make it as safe as possible. Number two, to make the maintenance of this property so much easier and so less time consuming. And number three, just give everything a really good prune and move around to help with the maintenance. Some of the bushes were overgrown onto the paths, they had ivy around the roots of them. As we all know, ivy around any type of plant is a definite no because it will eventually strangle your plant. So I started my first day all by myself, pruning down as much as I could in the front garden, getting rid of any plants. I'd already spoken to the client, they'd already let me know which ones they wanted to get rid of, which ones they wanted moved, and just which ones needed a really good prune. My mission for the front garden was the pathway and the stairs to have that all jet washed and cleaned, to prune back all of the bushes. Unfortunately, the wall at the front was very unsteady and unsafe and will need replacing before I do any planting or any weeding on the actual walkway up and down the stairs. So that was put on hold until there is a new fence, and then I will come back and I will do that area again, making sure that there's weed membrane down to keep those weeds at a minimum, because it's very, very difficult to weed on the ground, but it's still very nice to have just something there to look at and walk into when you come up to your home. Unfortunately, the front garden path was not completed. I got halfway around and the front garden tap had broken, so it had a slight leak where it needed a new washer, but the tap was so old that the washers that I'd bought weren't correct for the tap, so we could only go so far. So again, it's another job I'm going to have to come back to once the tap has been completely fixed, because once the hose pipe was connected for the jet washer, it just would not work. All the water was coming up in the wrong direction, so there was no pressure going to the jet washer. So the garden was quite a disappointment for me. Although it looks tidier now, it's still not safe on the main walk up and down the stairs to the front door. So that's something I can't wait to get back to finish, because I think that's going to make a huge difference to this property. It does look like I am pruning thin air there, but I promise you it is a rose bush. It is a rose bush that has come from another family member that has sadly passed away. And most of the roses in this garden, front and back, have a special meaning to the owners of the property. So I wanted to make sure that they were pruned right back, because it's been a very long time since they've had a prune. There I am fighting with the tap, trying to figure out why it wasn't working. At first it wouldn't even turn on, and I did end up getting a little bit of help. I did loosen it, but I couldn't just get it past that final bit to get it on, and that's when I realised the tap was not working as it should have been and was going to need some maintenance. So I did manage to jet wash the back garden and half of the front garden, but like I said earlier, I didn't get it finished, which was extremely frustrating. Here we go onto the back garden. It was a huge blank canvas, lots of blank spaces, but there was also lots of broken things and things that hadn't been maintained by other neighbours, like this fence, for example. It is not my client's responsibility to fix that fence. They knew it had been broken, they hadn't done anything about it. But as they'd seen me working in the garden, they'd actually come in on their side and tried to fix it a little bit. But we also put a piece of wood on this side just to stop it falling into the garden. So if the wind does blow and it breaks it again, it's going to go on their side where it belongs and not on this side. a very shallow area here with lots of bushes, no defined pathways, nothing defining the grass to the edge of the borders, and again a step there that was not safe, a very, very dirty path that does not drain into the drain area, so that took a lot of sweeping. I arrived with all my bits and pieces, and I decided to start with all of the pruning again. I was by myself on this day. I do have my family joining me during this video, and you'll see, and that is because the clients are actually my mother and father-in-law. Unfortunately, my mother-in-law got a recent diagnosis, which meant that gardening was going to be very difficult for her. She liked to be outside, to potter around and do some bits and pieces. She's not a huge gardener, but she does like the flowers and just having a little potting up and just being out there with the birds and nature. So I just wanted to make it a space for her that she could enjoy. And my father-in-law actually has a bad back, so I thought with all that grass, if we can cut that back and not have as much grass, then that would make it a lot easier for him to mow the lawn. I tried to make the most of any compost that was already here in pots, and I used it in other areas. There was lots of different types of pots. Some were broken, some weren't, some were in lovely condition. So what I tried to do is use the pots that were in the best possible condition, clear out all of the weeds, and then leave empty pots or maybe just one or two little bits and pieces that I'd found around the property for the clients to be able to go out to the garden centre and just buy their own flowers and buy their own bulbs and things just to pop in them themselves. When the weather is nicer, I will be bringing my garden sprayer, and I will be making sure that the fence has had a really good coat of paint on that green side there. The other side probably won't be able to touch, but this side desperately needed a coat of paint. So that will be done in autumn before we get all of the rain this year. That way, all of the plants and shrubs would have died back, so I'm not disturbing them then. Due to the location of the property right next to a mechanic's house, it was very difficult to talk to the camera because there was a constant revving noise. The bus route was right in front of the property, and there was a lot of kids in the area, so it was very, very difficult. So you've got me voiceovering through the majority of this video, um, as well as the mother and father-in-law popping out every 5 minutes to see if we wanted a cup of tea. They did feel guilty because we did do so much, but we love them so much that we wanted just to say thank you for everything that they've done for us, and just show the love to them that they've shown us. Day one just coming to a close, ready for a very, very big and wet day two. Day two, and you can see the rain and the dirt, and also the point where my husband took over and realised that jet washing is actually really fun, whilst leaving a note for his siblings for everybody to see. Day two, shopping day, we'd gone off to Wickes and B&Q. We picked up all the necessary things. We had a little drive-by and picked up some bits from home that we needed to crack on with the garden on day two. And it wasn't raining, thank goodness. The kids were over, giving us a hand with everything. We managed to get some of the wood done and pegged into the ground. I made one of the raised beds, my daughter made the other raised bed. My little boy, what he had done is set up the bird feeder and built that. My eldest boy worked with my husband on getting the logs around the framing ready to add the membrane, and also to start adding the stones that had been delivered in the front garden. I went for the hugelkultur method for the raised beds like I always do, and we put cardboard in there, which you saw my little one breaking up there. My daughter's boyfriend was helping her so they could hurry up and leave. We used cardboard, multi-purpose compost. We also used animal bedding, some weeds, some brambles, some of the sticks that I'd cut back off of the plants at the front and the back, which were dead, and that filled the beds up halfway, which is just where I wanted them, before adding all of the compost, the bulbs, and then a layer of the chippings just to make it look really nice and protect the compost from the rain so it wasn't getting sodden. And it just gave it that really nice finishing touch, having the chippings over the top, until the spring bulbs poke their way through. One thing that was definitely obvious on this project was teamwork definitely did make the dream work. It took a process of almost a week to complete the garden to where we could complete it. And I definitely couldn't have done it on my own. So I am really thankful for everybody, especially my husband, for helping, because he does not like being outside. He does not like gardening. Now the membrane was down, it was time to move some of the plants that needed to be kept but needed to move into different areas because they needed their own space. They were planted a little bit too close together. So that was one of the acers. There was 2 acers there. So now they've got their own space so they can bush out, and they've got plenty of space to grow. So they're not fighting not only underground but outside of the ground for space. So that is the other acer. As you can see, that's very, very well established and developed compared to the other one. So this one was obviously taking up more of the nutrition and more of the space. So hopefully the other one will catch up a little bit now, and it won't be long before they are similar shapes and sizes. While I was doing this, my husband was getting the stones from the front garden and putting them into the back garden for me to then go along after and just push them into place where they needed to go. We went through a lot of stones, so we ended up ordering a second bag of stones. The stones only came in 800s. They normally come in ton bags, but for some reason I could not get them delivered in ton bags to this property because the front garden is slightly sloped. So it took me a while to find a company that would deliver, and they only had 800 bags. So a second one was ordered. The reason why I made the area as wide as I did is because I want the clients to be able to walk up and down and around in all weathers without having to walk across the grass and getting covered in mud. So that is why I made it so wide. And it also helps then, so when you're sat on your stool and you are doing the beds, either a weeding or planting, you can sit there comfortably without having to put the stool onto the grass, making marks on the lawn, because there is nothing worse than having constant marks on the lawn, especially in the summer when it is looking luscious and green. This day was now coming to an end. It was just a case of finishing putting the stones on until the bag was empty. And then it was home time then, because the rain had started and our backs were starting to really ache at this point. Back again after a short break because there was 2 days of constant pouring down rain. So with the job that we had to do on this day, which was putting in the edging and finishing off the stones, we had to make sure the second stone delivery had been, and it had arrived that morning, thank goodness. Putting in this edging was not easy. As you can see, it's spiralized, which meant one of us having to constantly hold it apart and the other trying to hammer it in. And also what you can't see in this, probably because my big fat ass is in the way, is around this corner bit here, there's actually brickwork in an archway. So we had to go round it because we couldn't go through it. So I really wanted an L shape. I like nice straight lines, but unfortunately we couldn't do that there. So what I decided to do was buy a buddleia and put that in the corner of the stones. So it's more of a feature corner as opposed to just an L shape all the way around the garden. Onto the next part of the garden, and that was the pathway. When I originally jet washed this pathway, what I didn't realize is that it actually went a lot further back than what it showed. it completely overgrown in moss and grass and compost. So when we got to this point where the post was, we quickly realised, hang on, we're going to have to scrape all of this back and go all the way back. We could have done a straight line going over, but that washing line is used. So I wanted to make sure that that area was clear. So when I go back to finish the front, I will come back into the garden and just give that little corner bit a quick wash. It was an extremely windy day, dry, so we couldn't complain. And we'd made quite a few changes to this area. So my original plans had to change just a little bit to incorporate something for that wall, because that wall was driving me crazy because it was so bare and blank. And I knew we were going to put the wildlife area in the corner, but I really wanted something up on that wall. So we did get some trellis in with some flowers and some lights on it, and we popped it up on that wall. And I think that made the world of difference to that area. The buddleia had arrived, so I placed that into the corner. I do love a buddleia. I can't grow them to save my life. Every time I put one in my garden, it has died. So I don't know what I do wrong. I think it's just one of those that you need to just leave alone a little bit and give the odd prune. But I'm not one of those. I like to keep things neat and tidy. So I thought that would be a lovely inclusion into this garden. And then finally, just filling in all the gaps. So anywhere that was missing stones, and trying to go up to the edge without knocking too many stones onto the grass. And just filling up the pots, like I said earlier in the video, of compost, and placing them on the stoned area. Sometimes less is more. And when you are getting to the point of life where you need to slow down, having pots so they can be moved around and they're easy to weed just makes a world of difference. It really does. And looking at something that's not overcrowded and overfilled and just, it's overwhelming. So this way, this has looked nice and simple, and I love this layout. I definitely think less is more in this garden, and just having a little pop of colour with some pots just really brought it to life. If anybody knows who Laurel and Hardy are, they will fully think that me and my husband are exactly the same as these two. Together, we are just bouncing off each other. We are absolutely hilarious, because he will point something out and then I will change it. We will put something up and then it's not straight, so we will go back. Whereas he's a little bit more like, no, it's all good. Let's move on to the next job to get it finished. So yeah, so this flower wall did actually drive me crazy, because no matter how we put it up, it wasn't completely level. But I'm getting to the point of life where I'm realizing it doesn't have to be a completely straight line. It's okay if it's slightly off center, and it is okay if it's not a complete line. At the end of the day, the wind is going to move it anyway, and the birds landing on it is going to move it. So I'm not going to get it perfect, but I was happy with it in the end. Just doing a little bit of tidying up. We did leave all of the ornaments for the clients to put around the garden how they would like to put them, as it is their garden. And this table you can see in the background is a potting table. That is what it's used for. So we thought that would be a great addition underneath the flower wall. And just gives you something really nice to look at. And, you know, even putting some small pots on top of that table will just bring that area to life. Again, I didn't want to do too much, because I wanted to make sure that the clients were able to put their stamp on the garden and not just be what I wanted. So yeah, so I'm really, really pleased with how it is. And again, in the summer, when it's dry and we can get out there for a few days, we will give this table a really good sand and a really good paint, because it is a lovely feature to this garden. It's a lovely size. So yeah, I just thought it fit perfect with this area. And again, by putting in the membrane up to the level that we did, it just reduced that amount of grass. So there's still plenty to do in the garden. We could have just continued and gone on for longer, but I think we disturbed them enough this week. And it was my husband's week off, which is why he was able to help out so much. So he did pretty much spend his whole week helping me. And you know what? I think he was really pleased with the end result as well. I will have to just double check with him that he was good with it. And I think he secretly enjoyed jet washing. As you see, I've got a jet washer now. I did push myself, knowing that I needed one for doing this garden. I did push myself to go out and spend that money on one. So you won't hear me complaining in my own videos anymore that I don't have a jet washer. So to be continued in my own garden. I can't wait to get out there and start using it in my own garden. Thank you very much for watching. If you like my videos, please like and subscribe and share and comment. I love all of that stuff. And here's the final end result. In the corner is the water bath and the bird feeder, and the bricks on the floor are so my little boy can come and build a bug hotel with his nanny and granddad. He liked that area and he can't wait to build the bug hotel. Just a disclaimer, I am not a company, I'm not a registered company, and although I'm calling my mother and father-in-law clients, it's a lot easier and it's a little less of a mouthful. So my husband and I paid for everything in this garden except the second bag of stones. The pots were already here. As soon as the front of the property has been finished with the jet washing and the fence, I will pop up another video of that being done and any additional little bits and pieces while we are waiting for the nicer weather. So I hope you enjoyed. It did take a few days of rest and recovery from this project, but I hope they're really pleased.